So today we've got Nick Damer from Surepoint Group. He has been, well, he's an automation engineer by schooling. He's been with Surepoint for 13 years, and they've actually had this M.A.R.S mobile augmented reality services since 2019. So they have been doing this for a while, and I think it's really becoming more and more relevant. This is something I believe that you guys are going to, have a lot of interest in. I think that you'll probably find a lot of ways that you can implement this into your work. So I'm going to turn this over to Nick, and I'm going to give you screen access. You can talk a little bit about Surepoint in the meantime.
Hi everyone, thanks for inviting me out. As Andrew said, I've been with Surepoint for about 13 years now, and my role is a lot of electrical work, whether it's the automated systems, building packaging, other components like that. So a little bit different of a world than what you guys here do, obviously. However, that being said, this technology, it's one of those products that's useful in any industry. If you build products, if you own products, if you support products in the field, this technology is something that everyone here should see a really good benefit from if they feel that they can put it to use. Put the mic up 1 second.
Okay, just ended my call.
Okay, so
I heard sound there.
as I mentioned, Surepoint started in 2003 as a electrical and instrumentation company, and we've grown in services including the compression side. We acquired a company called Ironline about this time last year, and that's what brought me here today, basically, that relationship with the compressor group. And Surepoint, we've been working with this product since its inception on the HoloLens 1, starting in October of 2019. And now we're on the HoloLens 2 unit, which is just a little bit more powerful, a lot more comfortable for people wearing. And the quality of the display has just kept growing and growing. The way I look at this device is it's that next step forward, as if a cell phone being deployed for field troubleshooting and support when you're looking at the field side of things. And then there's another side of this aspect where it's more industrial building and packaging. I'll show you a little bit of both here. So going into what Surepoint is in general, just as a very quick overview, we do the electrical instrumentation field services still, the automation equipment packaging, and then as I mentioned, we got into the compression and controls a lot more heavily with that relationship with Ironline. The device itself, we package in a kit so that it's field ready. It has a backup battery so that it can get recharged. The device itself, it'll run for about 4 hours depending on the usage. And then the backup battery, if you recharge over a 15-minute coffee break, you'll get about another hour's usage out of it. And then as required, depending on the environment you're working in, you might need to package devices like Bluetooth headsets. We have the more industrial ruggedized model that works in class 1 div 2 environments, and it has bone conducting headsets, so you can hear in high noise environments. The microphone that's built into the device, it's good to about 90 decibels, so you can have quite a bit of background noise and still hear that call very well. And yeah, as I've been kind of touting the HoloLens here, this device is the next progress forward, considering it as like an iteration of a cell phone, where if you're out in the field, you need support. Instead of having to pick up the phone, call, and ask a bunch of questions with the person on the other end saying, well, what are you looking at? Do you see this device? Do you see this terminal block? What is this circuit breaker? Show me, is the next step forward with the HoloLens. Put on the device, use the camera, work hands-free, and have a two-way collaborative conversation. And hopefully this video works for both directions here. The field services side of things, I touched on briefly, the remote worker assist is the big portion that I think a lot of you here will see interested in. The other portion, the 3D modeling, which is a slide later on, is more for the construction end. And I have a nice glossy video from Microsoft that they were willing to share with us so that we could give you a quick, clean rundown on the field support on an electrical issue. I'll give it one more try and just turn my speakers on my laptop. And hopefully this kind of bumps.
Or what you do, collaboration is the key to success. When challenges arise, you need the right people with the right expertise. But bringing people together isn't always easy. Travel is not always an option. With remote assist, help is always a moment away. With a window into your world, backed by enterprise-level security, your team can collaborate with shared perspective, anytime, anywhere.
Bonjour, how can I help you? We're having some issues with our machine in C5. I could really use your help again. We just updated the manual. Great. This looks like an electrical issue. I've never seen that before. I mean, I think the Osaka plant had the same problem. Oh yeah. You think it's this component? Looks like the wiring is loose on that component. Okay, that's a problem right there.
Even though you might be a world apart, you can solve problems together.
Great, thanks for the help.
By bringing digital content and mixed reality annotations into your world and connecting people across devices, you can get the help you need to solve difficult problems faster.
There we go. So as I mentioned, that's a nice glossy video of kind of what the remote worker assist side does, and I'll showcase that further with you guys here and really bring into detail some of what they highlighted. You'll notice the device is slightly different from what I'm going to put on. We have the HoloLens 2. That video was made with the HoloLens 1. And then my last slide here that I'll just touch on briefly before I jump into the device itself is that 3D collaboration. And we have the ability to take Navisworks, SolidWorks, AutoCAD drawing and actually bring it into the HoloLens device through a program called Cognitive Spark, which was developed by a company out in the East Coast of Canada. And they work with the Canadian military right now too, doing a lot of this technology. And what it allows you to do is model your building, your device, and actually even go as far as to animate some of the processes. So if you have a valve that you regularly maintain, it's the same model. You send people out and maybe you want to give them a little bit of a advance notice on how to go through all steps. Well, you can bring that valve into the HoloLens, animate every step it takes to deconstruct the unit, and have that person be fully trained, know what they're working on before they even go out and see the device in real life, and then bring the HoloLens with them and have that model available for them to work on at the same time as their physical work. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to put on the HoloLens and then start a Teams call and it'll connect my desktop to the device, and I'll kind of be talking to myself here. One of the big advantages of the HoloLens itself is that it responds to voice command and hand prompts, and it doesn't require any special equipment to be able to interact with using your hand. So I have the start menu open in front of me right now. I'll bring some of this on screen soon, but what I'm doing is I'm actually going into the start menu and bringing up a couple of applications so that we can have this conversation. And you can see exactly what I'm seeing. The events for the HoloLens, there's a click, you can poke right into the device, and I can pinch and drag the window that I'm working with anywhere that it's convenient, so that say I'm working in this panel, I can place. Yeah, I'm just about to launch the call. So it's starting to ring on my end now. And I'm just going to make sure that there's no echoes in the audio. So there you go. Now we can have this conversation with a desktop expert wherever they are in the world, with the field worker on site and interacting. And it gets even better than this, because the video on its own with built-in microphone and speakers on the device to have that conversation gets augmented further. And if I want to point out specific components, for example, I'll start editing on my laptop, which freezes the view, you'll see, and it allows the desktop user to do things like circle objects in their field of view or drop arrows highlighting the device. And now when I stop editing, you'll see those markups are right there in the real world for me. So if I need to be pointed to a specific component, it's no longer what are you looking at, it's go here, fix that. And additionally, I have the ability from my end to do the same markups and interact with that window. So I can pick my pen color, drop an arrow, say, I'm looking at this screen, it's dark right now, how do I troubleshoot that? So if you imagine on an electrical issue, if I have this device in the field, I can call that electrical expert, the person that knows this equipment, and be walked through the process on how to fix this unit. So I have a little mock scenario with this that I can run through. And for example, I have the unit powered up. I'm just gonna see if I can fix why that screen is dark right now. I'm gonna clear my edit off and bring the window over to me where it's useful. 1 second. I have my electrical meter in the panel already. Turn it on, make sure that you guys can all kind of read it. And if you imagine again, if I'm talking to a person on the other end of the speaker, I can say, hey, I see the power supply on. I have good voltage between the the line in the neutral, I'm reading 120 volts. But when I go to the output, it's not reading anything. And then the desktop person can be able to identify again, instead of taking their word for it, they can say, hey, I see your meter is on AC, you need to be on DC. That fixes that problem. And you're no longer taking the person's word for it. You're actively seeing that they're doing something that they're not supposed to be and guiding them through the problem. So then you move on, that person on the computer end will know more about this panel and say, that fuse should be going into this wire 1020, and walk the person through the problem, highlighting specific components. And I'll just see if I can do a little bit of both on my end here. So if I ask the HoloLens Wear to get closer to the device and start editing, then it'll take that freeze frame for me. And similarly to what I showed up on the fire alarm, I can point out and say, I need you to check that specific fuse. When I stop editing and go back, you can see that arrow is pointing me as the person in the field directly to that location that I need to troubleshoot. And for this particular instance, I had pulled the fuse out, and if I put it back in, simulating a blown fuse, for example, and then voila, we have power. One other component of the remote worker assist side that I'd like to show you guys is the ability to share files. And I've done this by preloading a couple of files you can share actively through the desktop over to the HoloLens Wear. If I bring in the files and then come into some of these devices, I can actually bring up a PDF document, a picture, or any other files that are viewable through this software. And you can see I can interact, again, put it where I want to, blow the drawing up. So if I'm working on this device, and I can read this quite well, component description, circuit breaker 5 amp, 24 volt power supply. So now you have that schematic, that document, that checklist, and you can be using it right out in the field, hands-free, while you're working in the device. And it's just such powerful software, such powerful technology that we wanted to show it to you all.
That's awesome. So, any questions from the crowd? Yes, Chris. Yeah, battery powered, yeah.
And it can pair any Bluetooth device to it. And all you need is a mobile hotspot or a Wi-Fi network to get it connected so that you can make this call. It's an internet-based device. It has a bit of storage on it. It's a 64 gig hard drive. It runs a Windows-based operating system. So you have access to anything that you typically have access to on your desktop, such as this Teams call, OneDrive, web browser, and you can really bring a lot of information with you on the device as you're working in the field. Even if you don't have an internet connection, if you know that you're going to be working on a certain device with a manual that you want to bring with you, you can load that manual onto the HoloLens and then have it working right beside you, again, hands-free. And one of the nice things with the device too is obviously it's transparent, so I can see everyone around. It's not impeding my vision at all. I'm working safely as I need to. I have the ability to flip it out of the way if I really need that higher level of focus, and it just works. Yeah, so right now I actually have the device connected through my phone as a mobile hotspot. that's one good example of how to use the equipment when you're out in the field. And yeah, like yeah, if you look at it from my laptop here, you can see that it's quite a smooth stream as I look around. And then one actual other bit of technology that they just released in the software updates as a Microsoft product, you know, they constantly update their equipment. I can share from my computer the entire desktop if I want to, or a specific window. And again, thinking about the worker in the field, if you need to go over and be able to really showcase certain documents or pictures, you can run that presentation from your computer and have them continue to see what you want them to see specifically. Yes, there's a few licenses that you need to be able to get through to this Teams call, and then additionally, there's some licensing involved in the 3D augmented reality equipment that I'm going to show you guys right away here.
So basically, you guys provide the service, you guys have the hardware, and I guess you're gonna guide people on how to actually do this, right?
Yeah, that's right. So Surepoint as a company, we see the value in this product. We use it internally in our business, and we offer it as a rental for anyone who wants to try it, take it out in the field, use it on their job sites. If you know you're going to a project where, for example, you're expecting that 10 people need to be on site traditionally to view the progress of a new build, well, now you can ship the HoloLens device to the site, bring those 10 people in on a Teams call, and do that walkthrough using the camera and guide them through the live ink. It just saves everyone time and money, especially on the travel end of things. And additionally to that, you think about the safety aspect of not hitting the road at 3 a.m. on a blustery winter night to drive 8 hours to get to your equipment. Absolutely. That was my next segue here.
Okay, so this is where it connects up to the
Yeah, so this is this is the computer itself, and you have your.
Can you maybe walk through it? You've got your
Yeah. So on the industrial model that I have in my hands here, and I'm just gonna get away from some of those augmented pieces. There's the lens that has a camera array in the front, a sonar. Brought up the start menu with my hand. The camera array in the front, the microphone is actually built into the nose piece here with noise canceling. So as I mentioned earlier, it's good for about 90 decibels environment. This device being the more industrial model, it has bone conducting headset, so you can hear in up to 110 decibel and be wearing over ear protection. What it does is it actually conducts through the base of your skull to be able to transmit that audio into your eardrum. And then the back of the unit here, this is the computer and battery with a little recharge port, and you can connect some peripheral devices to it as well, but typically any peripherals, you're looking at a Bluetooth connection. So I'll this back down. We were talking about the 3D models. I'm just going to bring up something that's a little bit more relatable to this group, but to a point. It's a turbine engine. So it's loading that graphic into the HoloLens for me right now. Oh, yeah, thank you. So I have a model here that I can manipulate, grab it, rotate it, resize, and play. So if you think, as I mentioned, I referenced a valve. What this is showing is the blowout of all the parts. So if you think about a device that you have that you use regularly in the field, you deploy regularly in the field, and you have to do maintenance, if you model how to take that device apart, now you can bring it into the HoloLens and have that person see firsthand how every component comes out before they go out and put their hands on one of these devices. Some of the equipment that you're working on, you can break things pretty easily if you're turning the wrong bolt or trying to take the wrong piece off at the wrong time.
Does it change the background contrast at all? So it kind of darkens or dims the...
Yeah, for myself, I have the ability to lighten and dim. Now, it's not going to change on the screen for you, but the contrast, I can see this extremely well. You can never fade out the background. Part of the reason is that the whole point is you can see your environment and work around. It's augmented. It's not VR, it's AR. And just to finish off with this graphic here, I'm going to actually walk into some of the components, and so I have the ability to interact and get right in depth.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's way more fluid on the laptop. I wonder if the webcam on that screen. No, not long enough.
If I restart the animation there, I don't know if you guys can see that. Just to show you again. So right now it's pulling the front section off, manifold up the top, and then it splits the unit in half. And then the center of the engine here is still spinning, if you can see it on the screen. And then as this relates to the electrical world, again, just going back to that as my reference point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a building that we packaged. We did 40 of these buildings that needed to be identical. And the way that we did it was bring the model in right down to the piping level. Is it working that way? Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. It is the Wi-Fi here is quite slow. And just bear with me one moment while I bring the model up.
laptop.
Okay.
So here's a building that we did a bunch of units of, as I mentioned, 40 units that needed to be exactly the same. So we modeled the building right down to all the conduit on the wall. And similar to that engine, I have the ability to manipulate it just through grabbing some of the anchor points, rotating it, resizing it. And I can just keep blowing this up. And the cool thing about this is that what we were able to do is blow the unit up one-to-one inside the building and take that model and actually walk through it and lay all the components exactly where they needed to be on the wall. One other thing that I mentioned on briefly at the start of the presentation is the HoloLens has the ability for voice commands. So while I'm looking at this model, and it might just take a second, if I say larger, it'll pick that up. Larger. There we go. And it doubled in size for me. So as you guys can sort of see on the screen, hopefully, I'm now walking through the middle of this building through some of the components into the other side of the room, and I'm just going to center it a little bit. So now I'm in the telecom side of the room. You can see the lights on the roof. You can see the racks being mounted to the floor, HVAC units on the exterior of the building. There's the doorway, and I am fully immersed in this building. So for our electricians, when they were doing the construction, that pipe was in the same spot in every building because they followed this model by having that transparent overlay in the room before they laid their first piece of equipment. And for the people here in Edmonton, what I'm going to do is actually allow you guys to put on the HoloLens, anyone who's interested, and you can walk through this building as well to see exactly what I'm seeing. A little bit better than holding it up to the webcam. So is there any questions on this side? I just pulled it up so that I can see the group a little bit better. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Like, right. Yeah, because this building was modeled using SolidWorks and everything was built entirely to scale. So when you blow it up to the size of the building, then everything's one-to-one and always going to be in the same spot. Does anyone want to come try it on? Nope. That is the end of the presentation, yeah. Absolutely. And you can keep your glasses on, probably just tilt the visor. What it's going to do when you put it on, because it actually recognizes that your eyes are different than mine, is that it'll pop up a little box asking you to calibrate. Just click no or cancel to that. And the way you click it is by pushing your finger through the button. It hasn't asked, but the model's there. You're in the building right now? Yeah, so if you walk down. Look at the smile on his face. So if you think about this on the construction side of things, if you're developing the building and designing things, you can build this model out, bring it into the HoloLens, see how everything's going to fit together before you actually start any construction. Again, saving you time and money. On the construction side of things, having these models built and visible, being able to walk through by the, for example, the person doing the lighting, you can have a look and see exactly how that device is supposed to be hung so that you're not wasting time trying to figure out what they mean by looking at that flat 2D drawing on a piece of paper. Push your finger right through the cancel button. Yeah. Does anyone else want to give it a try? Yeah, it is definitely better than the And is there any questions about the 3D modeling portion of the software? Yeah, so yes, that's right here. The device, push your, there you go. The device will throttle your bandwidth based off your available usage. So we found out in the field that if you have 1 or 2 bars of 3G, or better yet, a bar or 2 of 4G, you can make this call, have this conversation. It'll dial back the usage as necessary. It'll degrade the video just a little bit if you're on really low cell signal to be able to maintain that voice communication. But we found that anywhere you go around the province, at least that we tested, if you have a booster in your truck, typically you can get this call going and have a fluent conversation and be able to effectively troubleshoot whatever equipment you're working on. It's mostly rentals right now. People aren't sure about the device until they actually try it firsthand, and that's part of our business model here. We believe in the equipment. We're excited about the equipment. We want other people to get that same feeling. So that's why we're offering it as a rental product, so people can put their toe in the water. Yeah, we can. Microsoft has a lot of rules and restrictions about any kind of markup. So we obviously don't make any money on the hardware, which is not the intention. The big thing here is getting this technology out into the field and adopted as a whole, because the more devices there are out in the field, the less a person like myself has to jump in that truck at 3 in the morning, like I was saying, and drive 6 hours to go put a fuse back in. Absolutely. So when I first placed the building, you noticed that I was doing a bunch of pinching and dragging. That's my interaction to actually move the building so that it worked for this space. And then similarly, there's some anchors on the corner, so you have the ability to grab it and rotate or resize as necessary. Other softwares that we started trying, what it'll do, you put a couple of QR codes in specific locations within the building, and it'll anchor the model directly to what you're working on. That is, we found more effective if you're on the commercial contracting side of things, if you're building structures like this where you have multiple floors, and it just allows everything to stay together. For building packages where it's something going on the back of a truck, this software has been fantastic for our needs. I don't know if you can help. Yeah. Get your profile up there, have an avatar. Now, the really cool thing about every presentation that I've done with this device, obviously, as mentioned, my background is electrical. People that I talk to coming from all different aspects, whether it's the compression side, the rotating equipment, the medical industry, we had some really interesting conversations with some doctors about field triage and using it on STARS Air Ambulance as an example. In the cattle industry, milkers, you have an auto milker for your cows and that stops working. To get the person out to your farm is usually counterproductive, a little prohibitive. And every industry that we've talked to people about this device, that switch clicks and says, it would be great to use in this. Yeah, the application that we were talking to a doctor with was STARS Air Ambulance. If you think about having a doctor seeing the trauma scene while that emergency medic first touches ground and says, this issue requires this level of attention, take them to this hospital. You might have just saved that person's life. Yeah. And then similarly, as the desktop expert, if you're looking at a device, a problem, and you have the capabilities of walking that person through on site to look at the components and say, hey, it might be this, this, or this. And instead of loading up your truck with all your different parts and pieces, you can diagnose it down to that one thing and get it out.
Hey, sorry, sent you a couple text messages.
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you brought up. You can have as many people in this call as you want. So I did this one-to-one, but you can start that Teams call like any other Teams call and have a whole group of people on the background watching and guiding that HoloLens user to whatever specific application or requirement that the expert can think of. Okay. Well, everyone wants to try it on. I don't know if that's going to work, but we could probably get you linked up with Surepoint down in Calgary and see if we can get it presented in large groups or small one-on-ones. We can definitely, yeah, we can definitely consider that in the future. And then being used with smart plant drawings. So the device, yes, if you can bring it up in a web browser, you can bring it up on the HoloLens. I've actually, on the automation side of things, created a HMI dashboard using the software Ignition by Inductive Automation. And I can bring that up on the device and use the HoloLens basically as your operator room. You can walk around in the field, have the HMI follow you around, interact with different devices. We've been testing out smart QR codes where on the instrument itself, you walk up to it, look at it with the HoloLens, the camera picks up the QR code and brings you to all the information about that device. Load your manual, your schematic, your real-time operating information, fault history. And then, is such tech only applied to field applications? Would it be possible to use for office employees for their interactive work? Yeah, as I kind of mentioned in the 3D modeling side of things, if you're trying to lay out a building, position equipment, you can definitely do it by bringing up the model and actually walking through the building without ever being on site. So the advantage there is you can see your clearances, how your bits and pieces fit together in the real world instead of looking at it on your computer screen through AutoCAD or SolidWorks.
Any other questions before?
So the 3D modeling equipment that I brought up, that was the Cognitive Spark application that I was mentioning. It's the Eastern Canada company that's we've been doing a lot of work with. And, yeah, so there's a quick conversion to go from the 3D modeling software into Cognitive Spark.
They can always send it down and try to set up something.
Yeah. Yeah, and on the field services side of things, the remote worker assist, yeah, you're really relying on that Teams call, that two-way video, voice, and the annotation markups that I was showing. And then you have the ability to, again, share files. You can pass things through Teams so that the HoloLens wearer can see it. Yep. Yeah, we've done work in Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, down in Camrose. We sent a device to Michigan recently, another one to Ontario, and Fort St. John as well. Depending on the term that you're looking at, we've been renting it out for about $1,000 a month. And yeah, one downtime service call, you drive even 4 hours to get that, you probably already made your money back. Currently, we have 6 units, and 4 of them are deployed.
So I said there's a lot of
Yeah, as we ramp up and down and depending on demand, what we have at Surepoint locations in Fort St. John, Edson, Fort McMurray, Nisku. We just opened up a Drayton Valley shop. We're opening up an Estevan location, and we have Calgary. And the intention is, as demand increases, we can either pass units around and we'll ship them out from any of our locations, whatever works best. Or if people need to rent it for the day, they can stop by our office, pick it up, use it for their need, and then that I'd have to get back to you on, but less than $1,000 bucks. Yeah. So just for the other group watching remotely, the question is, how much data can you store on the device? You can put up to 64 gigs worth of information on this, and it's all shareable simply through a OneDrive file share.
Yeah. It's all
Yeah, and in your scenario, you don't even need a data connection. You load those files onto the device in your office before you go, and then you're not relying on data at all. Yeah. And then you can also, being as it has the camera, take pictures or video record, and it'll store it to the device, and then you can upload it to OneDrive or plug it right into your computer and download that information afterwards. Yeah, and it does have a keyboard that pops up that you can interact with. It takes a little bit of getting used to be honest. That's probably the most clunky part of the device. Your hunt and peck typing, it works. I wouldn't rely on it, but if you need to type in simple notes, you can definitely pop up that document and do some annotations. So, well, this device in particular, because it doesn't require any physical devices, it doesn't it relies on the tip of your finger, and it just tracks that. And the spatial recognition is aware. You can connect a Bluetooth keyboard if you're actually planning on doing some markups. Again, the purpose of the device is probably less towards the typing side of things, but you can very well take that field manual if you have a checklist, and you can use that live ink pen that I was showing you earlier and highlight saying, yeah, I've done all of these, and then save that file back to your OneDrive, and it'll upload the next time you have your internet connection. Yeah. Yeah, and then like we were saying, if it's a piece of technology that you have that it's the same everywhere you go, you can take that and model it and animate the model to show the steps as you go through that procedure to disassemble it and then reassemble it. So if you have a SolidWorks model and bring any animation, you can, the process takes about 15 minutes. Yeah, it's a simple file export. The animation, depending on how involved, obviously, you have to have a person that knows how to do those animations. We use 3ds Max Studio from Autodesk to be able to animate, but anything that exports a GLTF file is the package that gets imported into the HoloLens. Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Nick. I think it speaks for itself. I mean, that's extremely useful information, and I think very applicable. So anyways, thanks to everybody in Calgary. Where are you? And that's website there. And thanks for everybody online. I guess I'm cutting my head off now. Anyways, there's food in the back. So we'll see you next time.